Hi, and welcome to the Independent Author Podcast. I'm Tom Kranz. Today we meet a young married couple who have collaborated on a children's book that, in my opinion, is just as much for adults. As Muslims, they saw a need to tell the story of Ramadan and Islam in the language of children, who often have many questions. The book's publication coincides with Ramadan and is called The Ramadan Tree. The authors are Talha Alvi, a programmer, and his wife Rahama, a graphic artist and art teacher. They did the writing together while Rahama did the illustrations. And Talha and Rahama join me right now. Guys, thank you so much for joining me here. It happens to be Good Friday here in central New Jersey. You guys are home for the day, I presume?
Yes, we're very happy to be here and
Thank you for having us, Tom.
Oh, of course. This is great. So you wrote this book together. At least that's the impression I got. It says written by both of you, The Ramadan Tree. And, you know, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I learned more about Ramadan and the vocabulary by reading your 20-page book than in the first 67 years of my life. You know, for the religion that's the second largest religion in the world, Islam, it's just amazing to me how much, you know, ignorance there is about it in the United States, you know? So is that why you decided to write this, or was it really more a kid thing or a combination of the two?
It was definitely a combination of the two. So I teach in the Scotch Plains Fanwood School District as an elementary teacher. And last year, I wanted to teach the kids about Ramadan. And I love teaching them about topics through books. I feel like it's a very easy way. They see the pictures. The language is very understandable for them. But I couldn't really find something that catered to that in the way that I wanted to teach them, where, you know, there was like partial understanding of it, but not like a holistic understanding, or there was some vocabulary, but then the vocabulary wasn't explained. So that's when I thought, hey, why not do this myself? So that's kind of where the idea came about.
I see. And you're an art teacher?
Yes.
Okay. So they obviously haven't hit the art curriculum in Scotch Plains Fenwood School District with cutbacks yet. Hope they never do.
Yeah, I hope so as well.
Yeah. And Talha, you work in the in IT and the tech. Tell us just briefly what you do in English, please.
So, as you said, I work in tech. I work as a programmer as a day job. But I went to college at Rutgers University and majored in English. So I've always had a love of it from back in high school, and, you know, even reading Shakespeare's plays, which other kids were like, what is this? I love the language, and I just love how, you know, it's essentially a lot. It sounds weird when you relate the two things, right? Tech and English, because you're like, what do they really have in common? But essentially, it's all just the process of logically putting together words to try to like achieve a goal or to try to like make sense of something.
Well, it's basic communication. I mean, it's applicable to pretty much everything we do. And in the industries I've worked in, it's probably the biggest single weakness in every place I've ever worked. You know, when people make assumptions and they don't talk, you know. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So that's
a great point, actually, that you just brought up, because even in my work, I've noticed the team is most successful when we're all talking amongst each other and sharing ideas. And so, it's just a basic human precept, I think, that, like, you know, when we communicate and when we work together towards building something, like, you know, we make something extraordinary. So in this case, you know, it was us communicating and working on this project,
which definitely had its challenges. For sure.
Oh, really? No kidding. I'm sure it did. So I'm going to read briefly from your About the Authors page. You're going to have to send me this photograph, by the way, because it's so great. So it says, Rahama and Talha Alvi are recently married and have started their life together in New Jersey. Rahama has been a visual art and design teacher for 7 years. She started her career in Queens. Are you from New York?
Yes, I grew up
You're
on
a New
Long
Yorker? And now teaches in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Talha is a software engineer with a passion for writing. This book has been a dream come true for him. So is this the first thing that you actually sat down and said, damn it, I'm going to write a book now?
Since I got into programming and IT, I kind of put it aside. It was one of those little regrets that always, like, you know, you always kind of feel deep down that you're like, man, I wish I could get to it. I wish I could get to it. And to Rama's credit, she motivated me and kind of pushed me, because sometimes, you know, you have this, like, you have this dream and you kind of like, but you always think, oh man, I can't do it. And then she brought up the idea that Amazon actually makes it very easy
Oh, yeah.
and they allow you to really like make it easy to spread your ideas. So having her tell me about that and then kind of push me sometimes too much.
So she pushed you to write, but then this brings me to the next question I have, which is, did you write to her pictures, or did Rahama, did you do your artwork based on what he wrote?
It was a little bit of both. I think that I started with some pages that he kind of designed his words around, but then I didn't have all the illustrations. There were still things that were missing story-wise. And he said, well, I think you're going to need more pages because this doesn't make sense. It's not flowing properly. We need a page here. We need a page there. You might need to draw something to tie this, topic in. And so it's really, I started with some illustrations that kind of inspired the words, and then we kind of built it off of that. And then I started to build it off of his words.
Okay. So I want to know exactly what you both have day jobs. While I was working, I basically wrote. Sometimes I actually stopped working at my desk at work and actually started writing at 2 p.m. Don't tell anybody. I think they know by now. But you end up writing, at least I did, nights, weekends, and, a half hour here, an hour here. How exactly did you guys accomplish that?
So it was for us, I did my lunch hour. I illustrated a little bit during that. And then the collaborative portion, a lot of that we both did kind of just sitting in bed and, after work, and instead of watching TV or I guess going out as much as we should have.
We're kind of homebody. Yeah. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So you sat in bed with your laptop on your laps and we're sitting there staring at a computer together? Is that how you did that? Or did you just talk it out? Or
I illustrated it on my iPad. So we I have my iPad open, and I was drawing using Procreate, and my Apple Pencil, and he was kind of doing the words
on my laptop.
His laptop. Yes. Yeah. So he would do a couple of pages and then I would take a look and I would be like, okay, some of the illustrations that I have work for the pages, and then I have to make more illustrations, which I would get very frustrated about.
Oh my God, the arguments and some of the fights, it got really heated.
Why you had to make more illustrations because there weren't enough to carry the story, essentially? Or
exactly. Yes. That's exactly right. Because there's a logical progression that you kind of need in the story, right? Like you need things to flow. Sure. You can't just randomly run from one scene to the next, So I'm like, we need the extra drawing there this should be like, you're creating more work for me, and then it would start fights. But.
So how many drawings are in? I'm thumbing through it right now. And there's how many drawings did you actually make?
Probably, I would say each of the pages, and then a few more.
Think about all the ones you didn't use.
Yes, there were. I think there were about 10 pages that I didn't use.
So 50, 100. I mean, what's a ballpark?
Yeah, I would say about 50 illustrations.
50 illustrations.
And when you draw, do you draw digitally?
Yes, I draw digitally. There were some things that I had a hard time drawing digitally. So then I would draw it by hand, take a picture, and then go over it digitally. But the reason I personally just love using technology for art. And then also it made it so much easier. I could copy paste characters, so I didn't have to redraw everything in each scene. I could copy paste certain rooms and things like that, and then just kind of add onto it. So using technology definitely made it much easier. I think I would have had a harder time working and
messing with paints and brushes and canvases and paper and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It took way longer.
Yeah. So I think we found personally, I found a smarter way of managing my time and being able to do the book, and also working at the same time. And with Talha, I think we just, even though it was tough, we kind of pushed each other very much, where when he would start writing, he would use very challenging vocabulary, and I would remind him.
Tech dudes, man,
I think one word that he used was like dejected. And I was like, I promise you, elementary students are not going to understand what dejected means.
Maybe they could.
And he was like, oh, maybe they could. And I was like, listen, think about it. If they open the book and there's words in there that they don't understand, they're going to lose interest and they're going to put it down.
Sure. Hey, adults, I'm the same way. My attention span is maybe that of a goldfish. So,
Exactly.
if you lose me at the first 20 seconds, I'm gone.
Yeah, exactly. And working with kids, I see that if I play a video or if I
Sure.
read a story that they're not into, that's it. They're done. They're like, playing with their hair or looking away or making noise. So it was very important that like anyone should be able to understand the language, but because
But
we did,
especially kids.
especially kids,
So you had
exactly.
to scale down the language, kind of scale it to, I don't know what, elementary school age, I guess we're talking mostly.
Right.
Yes.
That
So
was a challenge for sure.
how long did the whole process take, would you say,
I would say about 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
until you actually had a copy of the book in your hand or you saw it on Amazon? Okay.
Exactly. 5 months
And,
until.
and you published it through Amazon? You didn't use a publisher or anything?
No, so that's the other thing. I know that with I did a lot of research on self-publishing, on publishing. I listened
Yeah,
to a lot of podcasts. I like to do research before I get into something.
of course. Sure.
Yeah. And so what I found out was that with publishers, you have to write a proposal and then they have specific dates that you have to have work submitted by. And knowing that we both had day jobs, I feel like we needed something a little bit more flexible. And when I found out about Amazon self-publishing through another teacher podcast, and the teacher was talking about how she had published a book as well and kind of talked through the process. And then I was like, okay, this is something we can both handle while still.
And I can't stress that enough to your listeners and anybody out there. Like, I think it's just such a great idea, especially if you like writing or drawing or whatever your creative pursuits may be. If you like, such a great way to pursue those and kind of like put yourself out there and show, because if you have a creative thing, because my problem was always that I would write basically only for myself. But eventually, there's a part of you that kind of longs to share what you're doing and what you're creating with the
Sure.
world.
How are you guys like? Do you have boxes of this book in your bedroom, or are you selling them that way, or are you just kind of telling people to buy it on Amazon, or what?
So we're mostly promoting through Amazon just because, again, having full-time jobs, it's very hard to sell them ourselves and then ship
Yeah.
them out to different addresses and taking them to the post office. I used to have a small arts and crafts business and I did that. And I remember how tough it was. So that's why that was another thing that really appealed to us about Amazon, is that we didn't have to be involved with any of that. You just share the link and
Yeah.
people can order. They can send it to a friend. They can order for themselves. They can put in whatever addresses they want. So we kind of wanted to not be a part of that. Eventually that might change and we might want to do some more self-promotion and selling it ourselves. But as of now, I think we're happy with the way that it flowed through
It's
Amazon.
a great resource because obviously they have the KDP, which is Amazon's self-publishing tool.
Right.
But they also have Amazon ads too. And, so they help with the marketing aspect of it. And then, as Rama said, the publishing as well and shipping. So having all that in one convenient place just makes the entire process so easy.
You do Facebook and you do all the social media stuff and you spread the word. And I think teachers, especially, you guys seem to have your own little network, actually a pretty big network. Teachers know teachers pretty much everywhere, and their parents and their parents know their parents. And so that's all good.
That came in really handy.
I don't think we can stress enough the kind of support that we've received from her school, all of the teachers, her principal, people in the Scotch Plains community. Just everybody's really been very supportive, and it's very humbling, and I think it's just makes you feel good inside.
Of course. More with this fabulous writer-illustrator team in just a moment.
We failed to halt the Earth's slow death due to climate change and environmental apathy. The planet's temperature rose 7 degrees, causing epic storms, fires, droughts, and tides that ate away at our shores. Now in the year 2212, food is manufactured. Coffee and cars are illegal. The people who are left live in cubes, and the Earth is covered with bubbling lakes of a black, toxic brew. Two 23rd century rebels find a way to travel back in time to our century to stop the poisoning in its tracks and the arrogance that made it possible. Their mission is complicated by fear among their 21st century hosts and the murderous ways of one of the rebels. Read Time Travel Rescue, the sci-fi adventure called Unique and Original by Publishers Weekly. Time Travel Rescue by Tom Kranz, available on Amazon.
every adult ought to read this book to their kids. Because as I said, I learned more about, I mean, I kind of knew what Ramadan was and there's fasting and all that, but the vocabulary is now in there. And as I said, I learned more just from this, than I did in 67 years. Even I went to public school and it was never taught there either. So you're doing your bit, or more even.
Thank you.
And thanks for saying that, because that was literally the reason we wrote this, because, it's unfortunately with the media, sometimes there's misconceptions about there's only it's kind of we're only going to look at the worst people of a certain,
of course,
highlight them, right? And then everybody seems to forget that you have millions of Muslims living in America,
who are regular people, humans,
regular people,
jobs and stuff, right?
And that was a huge thing we wanted to promote through this book as well. The kids going to school, parents putting up decorations, something that everyone can relate to, no matter what religion you are. I feel like everyone kind of decorates for their holiday, families come together, and that's what we do too.
Kids have anxiety sometimes about things, and they go to their parents for help and turn to them. And
the story is it's very relatable between the text and the pictures. It's this is an average family basically, but they practice this religion, so what's the big deal? So is there really such a thing as a Ramadan tree, and do you have one?
Yes, there is, and we do have one. I just decorated it the other day, actually. So that was kind of our inspiration as well. When we were younger and growing up, we didn't have things like Ramadan decorations and lights and things like that. And it could be because it was the age of Islamophobia and a lot of other things.
Well, sure. But also from the Islamic side, generally speaking, it tends to be a little bit more a strict sort of religion in expectations for themselves. But just because you're strict and devout, I think it doesn't mean that there isn't room for fun as well.
Right.
Exactly. Sure. And that's more of a cultural thing, the strictness, and less of a religious thing. So that's why, we didn't understand why it can't be fun. And I think a lot of Muslims are starting to see that as well. So a huge inspiration for me was these moms who are selling decorations and Ramadan trees and things like that on Etsy, on Amazon now, and they're making these crafts to make it fun for their kids, because I think they saw that gap, and they understood that just the way we did with our book, that we need something out there. So the Ramadan tree, I discovered it a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I saw a bunch of them on Etsy, and I was like, this is such an interesting idea. And I don't know exactly who the creator is or where it originated from, but I loved the idea. And then now there's even more decorations. There's different ornaments that are Islam themed. There's different moon and sun lights, and a lot of crescent moon motifs and decorations like that. And now it's even bigger now, where you can go on Amazon and purchase Ramadan plates and decorations and banners and things like that. But it started at a very small scale. It was very tough to find decorations here when we were growing up, and now love it.
Do you think that's a generational thing? Do you think that so definitely this is, more the younger generation is kind of embracing decorating and just kind of, the whole tree thing and lights and.
Absolutely. And I think philosophically what it is if you go to any country in the world, they have essentially their own version of Islam. And, and they have local traditions that then meld into the religion and give their own version. So in my mind, I was thinking that, this is a version of Islam that we want, well, not just obviously children from Muslim families, but also just a Western audience in general, and an American audience to be able to relate to and understand that there's people out there who do celebrate like this. In fact, there's more of these people than, any caricatures that the media, negatively portrays. And, that understanding, and as you said, to people in the Midwest or in other areas that don't have Muslim people or don't have much diversity, I just thought there was a gap there, and there was definitely something that maybe would help with the understanding and help give people some knowledge and about the religion overall.
Right. It's always been my impression that it's one of the most misunderstood religions, especially in the past 20 years, especially God forbid since 9/11. And there's still a bunch of, garbage out there and stuff that even today, 20 years after that, the ignorance out there is just, it's staggering to me, and I don't have to live with it every day.
Yeah, no, we still definitely feel the effects, even though it's a lot less. I feel like realizing those gaps and saying, okay, how can we change this? How can we, create something that is going to be understandable for everyone? And even I wanted the book to be fun and enlightening, but not too and teach people about the religion, but not be too religion heavy, because obviously with schools and things like that, it's, it becomes an issue. And so that's why we did the vocabulary page the way that we did it, where the girl is presenting it as a poster to her class just to teach. So that way, if someone is not too comfortable getting into the details of the religion, but they do want to teach themselves or their child about, a different religion and how they practice, then they have that option to maybe not spend too much time on that page, or spend more time on that page.
And the whole point is not to be preachy, because that was my biggest thing. We're not out here trying to convert people or preach people. And that's, I think, what I just figured there's probably, if there were negative detractors, maybe they would take that line of approach. But the point is to be informative and fun. And I think, that was definitely the goal.
Mission accomplished. Seriously. I really enjoyed reading this, and I recommend it to everybody. Just to wrap up, the book is called The Ramadan Tree. It's the only one in Amazon, I believe, that has that exact title. So if you search The Ramadan Tree, it should come right up. The authors are, it was written by Talha and Rahama Alvi, and then Rahama did the illustrations. And as I said, they're pretty spectacular. And the book just came out, fairly recently. So, be one of the first on your block to get this. As I said, it's kind of going to be in the children's section, but any adult who needs to know just a little bit more about Islam and Ramadan will benefit by reading this. And it was great meeting you guys, and continued success. Keep on writing and drawing.
Thank you so much. It was great meeting you as well.
Thank you so much for having us, Tom. And it was really an honor. Really cool to do something like this. And,
I hope you do a lot more. Pleasure. Take care, you guys.